We'd like to look a little bit now at some simple organisational concepts. This will help you then to understand the issues that we're going to discuss with regard to the governance of organisations. Now, we can understand organisations in many ways, but the most simple and, in my experience, universally relevant way in which to understand an organisation is to suggest that it has a number of functions to carry out, and that for those functions it requires a certain capacity. Now, functions, these express and articulate the purpose for which the organisation exists. No organisation should exist for itself, but always for some other target group or whatever. And functions we can understand in many ways. It's fundamentally about what an organisation does, but more exactly what an organisation seeks to achieve. And functions can be understood in terms of internal functions, but also, of course, in terms of external services, products, outcomes, and so on, which it has to deliver. In public organisations and in non-government organisations, function is all important, because fundamentally these organisations exist not to make a profit for themselves, but rather they exist 100% to deliver certain services or certain goods to others. Now, capacity then. How do we understand capacity? Well, the most simple way to understand it would be according to four main headings. One is structure, the other is resources, and the third and fourth are systems and tools. And sometimes even we can take systems and tools together. What is structure? Well, structure is fundamentally about what structures the organisation. You might think of a very concrete example of an element of the structure, which would be a law or a decree or a charter, internal or external, which establishes an organisation and which expresses why it exists and what its structure is. But you might also think of other elements. You might think of management, of roles and responsibilities, of the delegation of management, of how responsibility and authority is shared and articulated within the organisation. That is everything to do with structure. Resources, these are human, people and their competency, and financial, operating budgets, but also maybe what might be called program budgets. In other words, special amount of money devoted for certain kinds of activities. Not just for the organisation to be, but for it to do certain things. Systems, these might be IT systems, but they're not only technological, they could be human resource systems. They could be anything, any kind of structured approach to supporting the operations of the organisation. And tools, well, they're some of the elements which will support the systems. They could be training manuals, they could be internal procedural manuals, frankly also they can be the computers, and so on and so on. So the bottom line here is that an organisation exists to carry out functions and can only do so through its capacity. And capacity really refers to all of these together and how they come together for particular processes which enable the organisation to carry out its functions. We can see this a little bit more dynamically when in the following. We might say that to perform its functions as defined by legislation or a charter or whatever, well, this involves some breakdown of the functions into tasks, activities, or services. And all of this requires institutional capacity or capability. I use the word synonymously. And these break down into structure, resources, and so on. Structure involves especially definition of roles and responsibilities with regard to the direction, the management, and the operations of the organisation. But it also requires resources, and that means, as I say, financial. But it also means people, human resources, and that means their knowledge, their skills, their expertise, in process terms, but also in technical, expert, professional terms, including issues like commitment and so on. And then there are a number of systems and tools which facilitate efficiency. That's to say, the organisation should carry out its functions with the minimum level of resources required. Effectiveness, that means the organisation should meet its objectives as expressed by functions and so on. And sustainability means that the organisation should be in a position to continue to provide these services or to perform these functions so long as is necessary. Now, if we understand this simple model, this will allow us then to begin to reflect on the governance inside organisations. And of the four elements, perhaps when we come to speak of governance inside an organisation, the most important might be structure, because if that is wrong, then the entire organisation is wrong, is unable to perform its functions, and therefore will not be able to make the contribution that it seeks to. So that is what we will be looking at in the rest of this module.